What's going on, everybody? It's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and it's everyone's favorite time. What time is that? No, it's not retro time, it's not nostalgic time, it's wild, irresponsible speculation time. And what are we wildly and irresponsibly speculating about today? Well, we're going to do it about the new upcoming consoles, the PlayStation 5, and whenever Microsoft gets around to announcing it and talking about it, the Xbox 2.4. Now, I was originally hoping to do this video a little bit later, but Sony talked a little bit about the PS5 before I even expected them to do so, and they gave one or two little, let's call it bits of information that kind of forced my hand to make this video. Now, I realize the Microsoft one hasn't happened yet, we know nothing about it, there's no info, no details, no anything yet. So at least I'm 50% on track. But anyway, regardless, this one is going to cover the PS5 and the Xbox 2.4. So we're going to take a wild shot in the dark and try predict what they're going to aim for with the new consoles, resolution, frame rate, etc, etc. Because there's so much going on that they could do. They could aim for 1080p 60 FPS, although given what we've seen over the last few years with the push to 4K, it might be a bit of a marketing misstep if they were saying, oh yeah, 4K is the future, 4K is the future, 4K, 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 here's our new console, 1080p 60 FPS. Because, well, we all know that so many games these days, on console at least anyway, either run at 1080p and run like shit, or some of them don't even hit 1080p. But there's so many different situations that could come up regarding the future of consoles and their performance. Are they going to aim for 4K 30 FPS, which would be an absolute disaster after the last 2 generations of terrible frame rates, compared to the prior 2 decades of proper frame rates? We all know 30 FPS just doesn't cut it. That's why the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X try to exist. Or will they tone it down a little bit and go with 4K 60 FPS? When you look at the current consoles, or at least some of them anyway, specifically the Xbox One X and maybe in some cases the PS4 Pro, you have games that will run at 4K 30 or maybe even some of them 4K 60 with extremely low quality settings, just to push out that frame rate. Or even earlier in the generation when you look at games like Assassin's Creed Unity, where they were cranking out simulations and visuals way beyond it in order just to get the quality, and of course the overall performance took a massive nosedive because of it. It's like I've always said over all these years, will developers go into the next generation prioritizing the wrong thing? Are they just going to try push visuals to the max and give you a 1080p or 4K game that runs at 24 frames per second? Or will we have options? Will there be 1080p 60 FPS modes, 4K 30 FPS modes, 4K 60 FPS modes? What do you think will be the standard? Maybe at a console level or maybe just the overall prevalent one across the majority of games? Oh, and by the way, when I mentioned 4K all these times, I'm not talking about rendering a game at some weird resolution halfway or just over 1080p and upscaling it using checkerboarding or whatever, or hell, just even basic upscaling. Just output it at 4K. I'm not talking about that. When we talk resolutions in this bitch, we're talking native. Which brings me to my final point. Sony have specifically mentioned 8K support, which to me is absolutely laughable. But how do you think they're going to do it? Do you think they're going to output at 8K using a 4K signal and just upscale it from there? Personally, that's what I think they'll do. If they don't just completely abandon it after 1 or 2 attempts at the start of the generation and realize that it's just completely unfeasible. Oh, and of course, 8K dashboard support. Woohoo, lads. But what do you think is going to be the standard they aim for with the next generation of consoles? I'm in 2 minds about it. Because I want to say they're going to mainly aim for native 4K 30 FPS because, well, consoles. Or possibly, because of all the hubbub this last generation, maybe they could possibly aim for 4K 60 FPS. But developers being developers, I have a funny feeling they're going to push the graphics a little too far and you're going to get the 30 FPS games with drops. Personally, I hope I'm wrong. It's so terrible to play a game at 30 frames per second. But we'll see how it goes. Let me know in the comments section below, what's your prediction on this? Are you expecting 1080 60, 4K 30, 4K 60? Or are they going to have different modes depending on what you have it set to? If you have it connected to a 1080p TV or 4K TV. Is there going to be 4K 60 performance modes and 4K 30 quality modes? And what would you prefer and why? Let me know all of that in the comments section below. Hit the appropriate button to let me know how I did on the video. And while you're at it, why not head on over and hit the subscribe button and even ring that little notification bell. Granted, getting a notification from YouTube in current year about a new video upload or a live stream or whatever is a whole other story. But hey, at least you can say you tried, am I right? As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the rest of the videos in my channel.